Welcome to the Raw Spotlight podcast, where we feature inspiring leaders in the B2B space and share their unique stories. Let's get started with the show.
Alrighty, welcome to the Raw Spotlight, the Modern Marketer series, where we dive deep into the experiences and journeys of up-and-coming marketers. In this series, we focus on marketers who are fresh out of school or early into their careers, sharing real-life insights, struggles, and victories to inspire others on the same path. So whether you're just starting or looking to level up in your marketing career, here you'll find relatable stories, advice, and strategies from fellow young marketing professionals who are already making their mark. So get ready to learn, grow, and connect with the next generation of marketing leaders. On today's episode of the Modern Marketer series, we have the pleasure of speaking with Celia Hoag, a skilled strategist and storyteller currently working as a digital experience strategist at Merkle. With a background spanning shopper insights, digital strategy, and educational mentorship, Celia uses data to create personalized, impactful experiences across various industries. Her passion for understanding human behavior and her love for storytelling drives her innovative marketing solutions. So today we'll delve into her journey, her work across diverse brands, as well as her approach to digital transformation. Celia, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course. And before I do dive into any questions, I do want to give a special sponsorship for our marketing agency. So this episode is brought to you by Ready Artwork, where we deliver uniquely tailored B2B digital marketing services to help facilitate the long-term growth of your business. At Ready Artwork, we combine data-driven insights with innovative design to help your business thrive in the digital age. From SEO and digital advertising to web development and email marketing, we have experts who help companies uncover growth in unexpected and extraordinary ways. To learn more, visit readyartwork.com or get a free proposal. Let Ready Artwork discover your full potential. Okay, so thanks for coming on, Celia.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So I know you've had about 5 years of experience in your professional marketing career. So I do want to start out by learning a bit more about how you started in marketing and what made you get into it, really. So I do want to know, because you do describe yourself as a passionate writer, a storyteller, which are super important qualities to have as a marketer. How did your journey into marketing begin, and how have these passions influenced your career direction?
Yeah, great question to start. I had no idea I wanted to go into marketing. It was something I had to trial and error and learn the right path for me through school and work and shadowing experiences. So in college, I studied business. It was very generalized. I think I had mostly finance, accounting, business admin focused classes, but I was able to start taking some more electives in psychology, in marketing, and consumer behavior. And that's really where I kind of latched on. And through great relationships with professors and other students, that felt like the right place for me to explore, because not only was I able to dive into data, but also really let my creativity shine through in that space. So it felt like the right path for me coming out of business school, but it wasn't until I started shadowing some folks within the advertising industry and the digital space that I started to really latch on to the idea that this was the right path for me. So it really took a lot of experimenting with different classes while I was in college, and also exposure to that world through shadowing and internships to identify that is the right place for me to start my career path. I know not everyone gets that kind of exposure, but through LinkedIn connections and asking people within the industry who were in my city, I was able to build my network and then go in and meet with them in person for coffee and in their offices to get that kind of exposure. And then when it comes to like the storytelling and writing piece of it, I have always enjoyed writing just personally, and decided to minor in that in school because it felt like a skill that would apply wherever I decided to go after. And I'm glad I did, because it's a really essential skill set within the marketing space, especially.
Mm-hmm. I do definitely agree that it has to do a lot with the psychology aspect and understanding your target audience. So I also want to know too, because you said you're really big on storytelling and you're really passionate about it, as well as
Mhm.
writing. So how do you think that you integrate storytelling with your actual work?
Every day, from presentations with clients to how I build out PowerPoints to how I pitch myself and my career growth to my mentors and my bosses. I think storytelling is that essential skill you need in order to sell in either your work or yourself. It was definitely a learned skill. I think in school, you're taught a very systematic way of telling a story, which is here's my hypothesis, here are 3 points that support it, and here's the conclusion. And coming into the workspace, I had to shift that thinking into being more succinct, more direct, and how I could really showcase who I was as a marketer and as a person, and also bring in my work and highlighting the skills that I can showcase there.
Hmm. And I know that right now, because it's your role has changed a little bit throughout the years, it seems like. So
Mm-hmm.
I saw that currently you're focused on digital experience strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that basically fuel your creative and storytelling approach?
Yeah, so within experience strategy, there are a lot of different kinds of strategy within digital marketing. This is just one aspect that a marketer can focus on, but it's truly about a customer's experience from end to end in the marketing funnel. It's from your first touch point within the digital space of awareness, driving consideration, and ensuring that it completes to conversion and your customer's goals. So ensuring that customer has the most seamless and fulfilling experience possible with the brand from beginning to end of that relationship. So when it comes to storytelling in that aspect, you really have to think broadly and tactically. So it's a lot of different kinds of storytelling elements that come into this specific job. It's thinking both at the full funnel, full cycle of how your customer is interacting with you within each stage and your eventual goal to get them there, but also within each of those touch points, how you can emphasize storytelling, whether it's brand storytelling or sales storytelling, to really connect with them and build that deeper connection with the brand and your client and move them forward down that funnel.
Hmm. And I definitely agree with that, especially with all the different touch points, right, at each step of the
Mm-hmm.
marketing funnel. How can I expand on this for my client? How can I provide opportunities to build on this funnel and really personalize that experience? So, those are great points that you just mentioned. So, at your current agency, Merkle's an agency, correct?
Yes, it's an agency.
Mhm. So, I do see that you do focus on personalized digital experiences for your job
Mm-hmm.
title. But can you share a specific example of how you use data-driven insights to create these experiences for your clients?
Yeah, really great question. I think personalization is just starting to create a lot of steam within the digital marketing industry. We saw huge movement online just within the past few years since COVID of brands moving their experiences to be fully digital. And that next phase of creating relevant experiences for your customer is with personalization. So that's really based in data and data insights and learning about who your customer is and their goals and taking that information to inform a more relevant and personalized experience to help them reach their goals across your digital channels, but also to help your brand reach their goals. So, an example of this could be product recommendations on a website. So, it's understanding where that customer's been before, past purchases, their other shopping habits, and recommending products to them that are hyper personalized or even more generally personalized to get them into our funnel faster and drive that purchase forward.
Mhm. That's a great point. There's definitely opportunities that marketers can identify for for end consumers as well. And you can also mix that personalization aspect, like you mentioned. So that's a great point.
Mhm.
So, also in your role, there is obviously, like we talked about a little bit, a mix of creativity and data. So I do also want to know, are there any challenges or exciting breakthroughs you've encountered in combining those two forces?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a misconception that data isn't creative. Creativity isn't always just writing or art. Data can be, and analysis can be really creative too. It's about piecing together various data points and sources to create a bigger story, to drive recommendations for your clients. So I think that's my first point is that data is creativity and it fuels creativity. There's definitely a challenge in making sure your data is sound and credible. And then also mixing different sources of data is always a challenge from first party to third party data. Whether you're Googling on your laptop or can actually go out there and source through research, I think having quality data can be one of the biggest barriers to that enhanced creativity. But data is really a space where I think audiences thrive and we can really tap into their habits through that information.
Hmm. Yeah, thanks for elaborating on that. I think that's so true. You can do so many things with data to make it actionable, and it feels like the things that you can do with it are just endless sometimes.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It really is. I think, especially as someone early in your career, analytics sounds very sterile and not as fun, but it's truly like where creativity starts. It's the foundation for all the work that comes after it. So, really diving into data shouldn't be scary, it should be exciting.
Hmm. Well, thank you for that. I definitely agree. And I do think it's important that as a developing marketer or people coming out of college with a marketing degree, that they understand the potential that it has and how you can make it really fun and interesting and mix it with strategy, like how you do in your current role.
Absolutely.
Hmm. So I do want to dive into your experience in mobile application strategy.
Mhm.
So I did notice that you co-authored an article recently about the importance of strategy, design, and optimization for mobile apps. So can you talk more about what makes a mobile app an integral part of a brand's omnichannel strategy?
Yeah, I think we've seen so many apps come into this space. My phone's filled with apps for literally every task you can imagine. But what makes an app an effective part of your omnichannel strategy is a clear value and purpose to your customers. So that comes from having a clear value proposition, core benefits, and an idea of who your target audience is to make it relevant for them. You're just creating an app to create for the sake of having an app, it's not going to be used or effective for your customers. So ensuring it has that clear purpose to support your audience's needs, I think is what makes it essential part of that on-channel experience. And we've seen sites go from desktop to mobile. Mobile should be the focus for all brands moving forward. All companies should be thinking mobile first, and apps are a key part of that.
Hmm. And how do you combine it with other channels? I know you briefly touched on that, but I was wondering if you combine it with like paid media strategies or SEO. How do you have that balance?
Yeah, so I think it starts with three key pieces to make your app effective. It's having that clear value proposition. So defining what purpose it serves within the rest of your marketing tactics. So from SEO to your paid media to your site, understanding its value within that larger ecosystem, I think is that first step. I also think it's imperative to have continuous optimization and innovation within your app to ensure that as your media strategy evolves, as your digital strategy evolves, the app is coming along with that space. I think oftentimes brands can leave it behind as just we have an app so visitors can use it if they need to, but continuing to optimize and test and incorporating customer feedback. So it's going to make sure it stays in line with the rest of your digital ecosystem.
Hmm. And on that note of your like mobile apps and how you approach it, what
Mhm.
are some key factors that marketers should consider to ensure that their apps for mobile are not just functional, but also engaging for customers?
Yeah, I think that really goes to one piece we wrote about in the article is human-centered design. Instead of designing for your brand or your product, you need to be thinking about your end consumer first and what's going to engage them, like you said, on your app. So that's starting with a simple design that's aesthetically pleasing but easy to navigate. And what's might be easy to navigate for me, it might not be for my target customer. So again, that brings in that testing element. We want to make sure we're doing usability testing to ensure that design is not only aesthetic, but also easy to navigate for visitors.
Mhm.
Along with accessibility, it's a legal requirement, but also helps with removing clutter and noise and distraction and making sure, again, that that app is easy to navigate so visitors can accomplish their goal and find the purpose of that app beneficial. And then, yeah, lastly is like usability, making sure that not only is that design interesting, but also serves the purpose of the app.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think it's really easy to bypass the human side of the mobile apps, right? Like it's really easy to think
Mhm.
design first, and then we can think about how we can make this functional. Versus,
Yeah.
like you said, approaching it consumer first or thinking about them first before anything. I think that's super important. And I totally agree with all of your points.
Yeah, that's probably something that applies to all areas of digital marketing. The more you can think consumer first versus product or brand first, the more beneficial all of your marketing tactics are going to be.
Hmm. And I am curious on that note, how do you share that same thought process with other departments or team members?
Mm, that's always tricky. And I do think it depends on who your team members are. That was something I looked for a lot early in my career was team members who were receptive and open to that collaboration. But I do think part of a marketer's job is advocating for your customer and ensuring that their voice is heard on all spectrums um, within an agency, within a company, a brand. So I think that's part of our job description is really advocating for the story, advocating for the customer and what's going to best serve them throughout their experience.
Hmm. Yeah, thanks for elaborating on that. I think that's such an important thing to consider as a marketer, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think it's talked about often enough when you're starting off early in your career. We're taught a lot about looking into your target audience and identifying who that audience is, but it also comes with advocating for them from start to finish within a product project.
And that's not really, like you mentioned, that's not really emphasized in college education.
Mhm.
Education a lot of the time where you advocate for your customers. Honestly, I've never heard about someone saying that before either, but it's so true. So
Yeah.
that's a great point to make.
Yes. I don't think it's talked about a lot, but I like to think of it as advocating because not only it helps me as a marketer to make sure I'm thinking customer first, but also make sure that everyone on my team puts themselves in our customer's shoes.
Hmm. Definitely. So I do know that you have a lot of great viewpoints, especially to young professionals and students as well.
Mhm.
And I saw that you worked previously as an associate instructor at Podium Education. And in this role, you mentored young digital marketers. So, what advice, generally speaking, do you tend to give young professionals starting out in the industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the one I always go to, there are many lessons, but I think the one I always go to first is that there are so many types of jobs within marketing. I think within school, especially the exposure I've had within my college career or friends' career, you're only taught that there's marketing, that there's business, that there's sales. But within marketing, there's a million jobs you can do. Even within digital marketing specifically, you could focus only on SEO, only on social media. You can do experience strategy, you can do website development. Those all fall within that marketing bucket. And I think as someone early in your career, it's difficult to see all those paths to go down and pick out the one you like the best. So that's where I think a lot of like shadowing, taking extra classes, talking to professors about what those different areas are, getting exposure to them to identify where you want to focus and where you want to go next. So a lot of that comes with experience, but I think reminding folks that it's not just marketing. There's a lot of things that go into that, and you can pick what's right for you and what you're really passionate about.
Mm-hmm. And how might that differ in terms of advice for finding that path post college? Because I am aware of some young professionals that might start out with a job in marketing and it might be their first one ever. And then they realize, oh no, this is not what I want to do, or I want to explore different paths, but I don't even know how to get started.
Yeah, I think the first is don't feel bad if you feel like you're going down the wrong path. There is time and space to figure out what you want to do and to it's not starting over, it's just exploring the next branch of your path. I think I started out in more traditional brand strategy and then moved into digital experience strategy. And it felt a little bit like I was taking two steps back or moving backwards in my career, but it was just the next path for me to start exploring down. So that was like the first reckoning I had to deal with. And my advice for those folks who are in a position that maybe they want to change is okay. Things will come when they're supposed to come. So I think reminding yourself of that is helpful. I also think when it comes to changing your career path and shifting within marketing specifically, it's such an ever changing field that staying curious and like coming at things from an open learning mindset will make it a lot easier to jump around. And I think all marketers tend to have that mindset. And so if you're coming to a new job or applying to jobs in a different field, showing up from a place of curiosity, I think any marketer would appreciate that. And a lot of the learning comes from being on the job. I didn't have any digital experience when I applied to my current position, but they knew that was something I could learn and grow in because it is such a learning oriented environment and ever changing career field that because I came at it with a learning and curious perspective, they were more willing to have me join a team with less experience.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good point to make because
Mhm.
with some young professionals or college students, they hesitate to apply to certain jobs because they think I don't have experience for it, even though I'm very passionate about it and I want to learn more.
Mhm.
But like you mentioned, some companies really value that desire over experience because it reflects in your hard work and how fast you can pick up things, right? Like how you landed your current position.
Yeah, totally. I think marketing isn't unique in that way, but is specifically like designed to constantly be evolving and changing and growing. So I think one of the most beneficial things and someone early in their career can be is open to learning and growing and changing and expressing that desire. And I think it will be really received well by everyone in the field.
Hmm. Yeah, well, thanks for building on that because
Mhm.
I think it's such an important discussion that soon to be college graduates or young professionals should definitely keep in mind. So,
Absolutely.
mhm. So, in terms of applying this to you, because obviously you've been through this experience and you went on your own path over the past 5 years. So, how did you decide on a career path and how do you help students with the same advice that you just presented to us?
hmm Yeah, for me, it was a lot of trial and error. I had to get exposure to understand what felt best for me. I'm certainly like a hands on learner. So I think working in the field, shadowing internships was the best way for me to understand the right career path. And generally, that's what I tell my students and other young professionals as well. I think the more you can talk to people in the field, I did a lot of like just cold messaging people on LinkedIn and asking for 15 minutes to chat about how they got into marketing, why they like marketing, um, is so beneficial. Like you can't underestimate the power of a network and learning from other people. So I think probably talking to folks already in the industry is the perfect place to start. And then if you can, starting to get hands-on in that space. So shadowing someone for a day, taking someone out for coffee, getting internships are all ways that I recommend folks starting out in this industry to start getting that exposure to understand what if they like marketing and then what within marketing really piques their interest to start digging into further.
And I know you briefly mentioned LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is such a powerful tool for networking and connections and just
Mhm.
building that professional group of people that have been through your shoes that know those similar experiences. So, how would you recommend that young professionals, I know you mentioned that they can reach out for coffee or ask, why did you get into marketing? How did you get into marketing? How do you recommend young professionals to really leverage LinkedIn? That's such a powerful tool.
It really is a powerful tool. I think it can be intimidating to start. How I started was by posting some of my writing and posting some of the work I was doing in school, just to get more exposure and some of my ideas out into the space. But I also started messaging folks within my network. So, one that started with people my friends or professors knew or recommended. So, some of my marketing professors helped connect me with folks in the area that I could talk to over coffee. I also just messaged people on brands I liked, which cold messaging and sending DMs to people is intimidating. And if that's not something you're comfortable with, then and doesn't feel authentic to you, then not something I would recommend. But it's an easy way for someone without a network to start building that network. I also think on LinkedIn, groups are really underutilized by those early in their career. Um, Joining groups or clubs within LinkedIn space. So, like, I belong to a marketing strategist group and a social media strategy group, and messaging people within that connected experience is another way to start building your network and finding folks within the space you're interested in and tapping into their resources as well.
hmm And in terms of getting a job on LinkedIn, because I know right now it's been super competitive in my opinion over the past couple years getting a job
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. How would you recommend that students or young professionals optimize their LinkedIn profile? Because I believe you found your current position through LinkedIn. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I did.
hmm
Yeah, I agree. It's been a really tough market for marketing specifically, finding jobs. There's been a ton of layoffs in the space. So I really feel for folks who are on the hunt, especially early in your career, can be really disheartening, searching for a job and not getting any traction. Um, but I think some of the tips that I lean on when optimizing my profile are really tapping into SEO tactics on LinkedIn. So optimizing your profile line, your profile bio, and adding in keywords that you know apply to some of the jobs you're looking for or that you know recruiters are looking for. You can optimize your resume in a similar way, and making sure they align can also enhance some of your job search capabilities. I also message the recruiters that are tapped onto each of the job postings. So if I see who posted the job within LinkedIn, or if it says message the recruiter, you can DM them right there on LinkedIn and get your name noticed a little faster than if you had just applied with your resume. So I think that's one way to start building connections. And how I message those folks is always from a place of curiosity and learning. Like I said before, I think people are more receptive to people who want to learn and show their interest. So I always start with questions about the job posting or asking for clarity or saying, hey, I'm really interested in this. Can you tell me more about it? And generally, they'll always respond with, yeah, let me tell you more. Like, I'm so glad you reached out. I can help explain this. It helps you build, again, that connection with the direct job poster and who's hiring, and also get some of your questions answered in the process. So I think those are my main tips is don't be afraid to reach out with questions and connect with the job poster, and then also make sure you're incorporating keywords into your profile.
Those are great tips. I think that reaching out is It's kind of like the cold outreach, right, on LinkedIn that you talked about. It can be
Yeah,
so intimidating, but it
it
can be
can.
so powerful and it can be such a positive experience too.
Yes, yeah, it was a big barrier for me to try and get over. It's not easy to reach out to somebody you don't know. But I like to remind myself the worst they can say is no or not respond. And then that's okay. I know where they stand and I can move on to the next question, the next person.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree. That's a
Mhm.
good point. So I know that we talked about career focus and the growth aspect, as well as suggestions for LinkedIn optimization, for example, for young
Mhm.
professionals. So I did kind of want to switch over to your previous experience and learn a bit more about um, some of the tactics and strategies that you applied to your work experience. So, um, during your time at the Integer Group from your previous job,
Mhm.
you did lead insights, discovery, as well as trend analysis for brands like Starbucks and PayPal, which are huge companies, obviously, as we know. How
Yeah.
do you use these different insights to shape impactful marketing campaigns?
Yeah, great question. One of my favorite projects to work on was Starbucks during COVID. I was helping out with their at home coffee business. So, think the bags of coffee you can buy on your shelf at the local grocery store. And during COVID, people were really missing their cafe drinks, their caramel macchiatos, and I was for sure. And we saw this really ripe opportunity for how to tap into that with our at home coffee business. So we had this new generation, Gen Z, who was now at home missing their coffee, hadn't been exposed to our brand. And we used a lot of data on who this customer was, their coffee habits, and applied it to our at home coffee creative and branding and some paid social work. So we really tapped into this new behavior that we noticed within this audience and their previous shopping habits, their drinking habits, um, their lifestyle habits to create paid social that was relevant to them and helped bring them into our at home coffee fold. So I think a lot of audience insights come out of a time and space within COVID, but it changed our behavior. And at home coffee has become centralized to a lot of folks' routines now. So, from tapping into that new audience and our audience's new behaviors, we were able to create relevant um, paid media and advertising that helped bring them into our customer base. And now we nurture that audience through data analysis and continue to build on them.
Hmm. That's awesome that you applied, like how we talked about earlier. You took the data, you took like you mentioned, the Gen Z behavior, and you looked at that and then you provided recommended channels to focus on as well for the success of the campaign. So
Mhm.
that's awesome how you combined like you said, the creative aspect versus the data. So using it to support these decisions is awesome.
Absolutely.
Hmm. And how would you say that, um, or how important are cultural and social trends in influencing brand strategies today? And how do you stay ahead of those trends?
Yeah, it's hard. I feel like the trend cycle with TikTok and social media moves so quickly. It's difficult to stay on top of them. I think you have to pick the right cultural moments and trends that make sense for your brand and your goals. So they don't all apply. But when it comes to staying on top of them, it's a lot to do with understanding where those cultural phenomenons are happening. So, watching social media, blogs, podcasts are all ways that I try and keep in touch with trends, both as a consumer and then bringing that into my day to day work life. I think the more exposure you can get from people across the industry through LinkedIn, through blog posts, I really like the Marketing Brew as a great place to go for quick and fast insights and resources. So staying on top of my reading and content can be hard, balancing that with work and my day to day projects. but the more you can tap into those resources across the industry for insights and trends that your brand might want to use or tap into, I think the better.
Mm-hmm. And I do know that there are so many changes, right, every day, and new trends, like you mentioned, they change all the time. So, how do you find that good process or flow of bringing those changes to your agency? Because
Mhm.
sometimes it's like, do I pick and choose? Which ones do I pick? Because if we made a change every single day, we wouldn't have a process, right? So, how
Yeah.
do you navigate that?
Yeah, I that's totally fair. There's so much change happening, it can be rather overwhelming. It took me a while to adjust to the speed of change within the marketing industry, but then within a lot of those digital platforms that I'm responsible for, from Shopify to social media to e-commerce, the trends just build and build on themselves. So I think it's first, if you have a specific client, it's making sure you remember their goals and objectives and keeping that in mind when looking through all of those resources and changes. If it applies to helping them reach their goals and objectives, then it's probably something you could dig into a little further. But if it's not going to enhance that experience, then it's probably something you can save for a later date. In terms of bringing it forward and like making sure I'm staying on top of it, I think newsletters are a great way to do that. So, whether it's you subscribing to newsletters, so it's constantly in your inbox, I usually, while I'm having coffee, read through them, scan through them. There are also AI tools that'll summarize it all for you now, which is amazing. AI is amazing. You should use it for everything. That would be a great way to stay on top of trends, is just ask ChatGPT to summarize what's happening for you. Um, but I think also you can send newsletters to your clients. A quick email over, say, hey, I know we're working on growing our awareness within Instagram. I saw this article that I think it applies to that. Maybe we should think about it or talk about it the next time we connect. It's those small everyday actions that really help build a relationship with your clients and show you're thinking about them, but also are an easy way to share insights that are informal, but also will drive their business forward.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree. And like you mentioned, there's so many different ways that you can apply that information, like to clients or to yourself. And AI is
Yeah.
super important too.
Mm-hmm.
So, on that topic of AI, because it is a growing tool that we should be using and it's just great overall. It saves a lot of time and efficiency.
Yeah.
So with the different advancements in AI and personalization that we previously talked about, how do you envision the future of digital marketing and customer experience evolving over the next few years?
Yeah, I think AI is going to be an integral role in marketing moving forward. I think marketers, I know there's always this fear of AI taking your job, but I think the interesting part about marketing is that it's a tool that can help us, but it can't think like our consumer thinks. It can't bring in that human centered perspective that is so key, and what marketers can really bring the value with AI in partnership is what's going to push a business over the top and really help them win in the space. Um, AI is such a useful tool and foundation, I think, for research and for learning about your customers. But I think it's, again, just a tool. The data coming out of it isn't always accurate. We can't always source everything. It's getting better. There are better and better tools. So hopefully it continues to grow, and that sourcing and data referencing will become even stronger. But I think it's a place to start brainstorming for now, um, to really drive that creativity forward. So I use AI in my day-to-day work. It's a great place to start when doing desktop research, to identify maybe areas I need to explore more. But again, it's like that foundational tool right now, and I hope in the future it will become more integrated into our process. I mean, on the marketing tech side, it's already starting to be used to help automate processes and the background of a lot of brands' work. But I think for how marketers should think about it day to day is that foundational tool to help spark creativity and interest, but not as the end all be all solution.
Right. And it is, like you mentioned, really cool how these different tools recognize it and then they apply it.
Mhm.
And I think that's just going to be such a big part of future careers for marketing as well.
Yes, for sure. I think anyone early in their career should explore AI, even just on their own for interest piece or whatever. But I think it'll become essential tool for how marketers work in the space.
Hmm. And I don't know if you're familiar, but I am aware of some colleges already offering marketing and AI infused programs for undergraduate or master programs as well. What do you think about those programs? And do you recommend that young professionals of this age or in the next few years pursue that?
Yeah, I haven't been exposed to those programs. I don't know exactly what they entail, but I think it's important for folks who are early in their career in marketing to get exposure to AI. I think, again, it's becoming more and more of an essential tool to our jobs, and understanding, at least foundationally, how to use it to your advantage and how it can help your clients or your brand will be essential to where marketing goes in the future. So I definitely recommend those programs if they're offered at a person's school or as a higher education certificate. I think having some understanding of AI and its uses benefits so you can use it to your advantage, whether for your brand or for yourself, is definitely something early career marketers should tap into.
Hmm. And talking a little bit more about the future of marketing, I was curious as to what excites you the most as these changes are coming underway. And where do you see yourself focusing your efforts in the coming years?
Great question. I certainly think AI is part of that. I think it's a really exciting space and is moving really fast. So I'm excited to see where it goes and how we can continue to optimize it to our advantage. I'm also really passionate about personalization. I know we talked about it earlier, but I think a lot of brands are just kind of in the first phase of adding personalization to their websites and their digital experiences. And I think it's a huge growth opportunity for a lot of brands and also for marketers and how they can tap into it to really enhance their experiences across the digital ecosystem, especially within websites. That's where I'm most passionate. But I think personalization is going to be a huge trend and continue to grow and optimize um, over the coming years. And that's really where I'm focused and learning the most.
Hmm. That's, I think, totally on point with the different changes that are coming underway as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have one final question for you before we close out here, which is what's one piece of unconventional advice that you would give to a young marketer starting out today?
Mm. I don't know if it's unconventional per se, but I think I personally struggled a lot with imposter syndrome and identifying if this was the right thing for me and if I was showing up and adding value to my teams. And I really like the quote from Henry Ford, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So it's something that I'm still trying to work on. But having faith in that your opinions matter, that your point of view is important and should be spoken, I think is something that was difficult for me early in my career and that I still struggle with. So reminding myself that I bring value to my teams, that even though I am early in my career, my ideas can be just as valuable as the CEO's, um, and really trying to overcome that fear that you'll fail or that you're not valued in the space because you are. You bring your own unique perspective and point of view, and voicing that to everyone is incredibly valuable, more than you think it is.
Hmm. Well, thanks so much for sharing that. I think you offered a lot of great advice and stories today. And as we conclude and close out this episode of the Raw Spotlight, the Modern Marketer series, I just want to give a huge thanks to Celia for sharing her journey with us. So thank you so much, Celia, and basically for sharing all of your incredible insights, experiences, and your overall journey with us today. It's overall been a real pleasure learning from you and like your different stories. And I'm sure that other young professionals and listeners definitely want to hear more, and they can take a lot from your advice that you just provided today. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It was a great conversation. Really appreciate you having me. Any young marketers can reach out to me. I love helping with this kind of stuff.
Yeah, Celia is on LinkedIn.
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn, please.
Alrighty. Well, thanks for tuning in. And remember, your path as a modern marketer is just beginning. Stay inspired and keep pushing forward.
Thanks for listening to the Raw Spotlight podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.